I honestly think these programs are the key to finding a way to afford to travel. Hello, I'm Sojourner. Welcome back to my channel. I'm a remote social worker, trained travel queen, and award-winning travel journalist. And to talk about how I afford to travel, I want to break it up into my past strategies. So stuff I used to do when I was a undergrad, graduate student, pre 9 to 5, and currently as I am a remote social worker, also being a travel creator, working a 9 to 5 job. So let's talk about study abroad. This kicked off my entire travel career for me. I studied abroad in 2015 for 5 months in Granada, Spain. I was a Spanish major in undergrad, so it made it relatively easy for me to study abroad. However, the key way I afforded to travel as a student was through my federal financial aid. I learned that instead of doing one of the more expensive 2-week interim courses in like January or May, where at the time I had to come out of like $4,000 that I did not have back in the day, I decided to go for a semester instead. One, because it worked better with my schedule. It made more sense for me as a Spanish major to go abroad for a semester. Two, it also was better financially. So you're able to use your own federal financial aid. So all the scholarships and grants and loans that I was taking out in undergrad, I was using to go to school in Illinois, I was able to go and use to go to school in Spain. So if you are a student looking to study abroad, go to your study abroad office to go see if they can tell you what all your options are. Because without my FAFSA, I do not think I would have been able to go abroad while I was an undergrad and travel the way I did. Because once I was in Spain, it was really easy for me to go and hop around. I went to Portugal, I went to Italy, London, Morocco with my study abroad program. So do not sleep on those study abroad opportunities if you are a student. And study abroad led me to the second way I used to travel, or the way I used to afford to travel, which you should look into, which is through international fellowships. So international fellowships are 1 to maybe 3-year contracts you can take to go live and work abroad. And this is a great opportunity if you are someone who cannot afford to quit their job to travel the world. They can be teaching programs, they can be just work programs. I've seen some in the social impact space, a lot in education, which is the route I went through. I won a fulbright fellowship to go teach English in Spain for a year. So after I spent 5 months in Granada, I came back home for a year, graduated, and moved back to Spain to go teach English in northern Spain. And our formal titles when I was in Fulbright was English teaching assistant and U.S. cultural ambassador, which sounds very fancy, but it was a great year. I learned a lot living in Logroño, especially being the first Black teacher that a lot of my students ever interacted with. There were some good experiences and not so good experiences, but if you want to travel more, doing a year-long fellowship where you're making money, but also have the weekends to travel is chef's kiss. It is one of the best ways, I think, if you are an early professional or looking to make a career change, is a great opportunity. However, I will say that you need to be clear that you are not traveling full time. So the way my schedule worked when I was a Fulbrighter was that we worked Monday to Thursday, honestly like 9 a.m. to 1:30 or 2, because Spain had their siesta, and we had every Friday off, which meant that I could either stay in Logroño and do a lot of the wine tours, which I did quite a bit because Logroño is in La Rioja, which is the wine region of Spain. However, I also traveled a lot around Europe, very similar to when I studied abroad, just I had a little bit more money. So I went to Amsterdam, Berlin, Brussels, Budapest, spent Christmas in Prague, Greece. I lived out my sisterhood of the traveling pants dreams, spending my spring break in Greece. So there are a lot of opportunities for you to travel if you do a work abroad program or international fellowship program such as Fulbright. Some tips for when you are looking into international fellowships: I really recommend the website ProFellow. I've used them for quite some time. I used to write for them as well as a freelance writer, and so I think they're a great resource. The database is free. You can search the different fellowships based on discipline, which I think is really nice. People assume that that you can only teach English abroad, but if you go through Profellow's website, you are able to see there are a lot of different options that you can use in order to find the fellowship or work opportunity that best aligns with your own career interests. And both study abroad and Fulbright led me to tip number 3, which is picking an international focused career. Now, I will say with this, not every job, even if it is international, will provide you the opportunity to travel. However, there are more opportunities to maybe go to a conference, or in my case, I decided to get my master's degree in international social work. And if you don't know what international social work is, it's very similar to social work in the US, only put it in an international or a global context. So it's primarily an international development space, which is one area you can choose if you want to travel more or have more international experiences in your career path, international relations, international affairs, any of those international careers. Go try one of those to see if it aligns with something that you want to do. But again, this does not mean you will be traveling like you were a full-time travel blogger, or even if you were in international fellowship, but you have an internationally focused career, which means there could be more opportunities for you to get those international experiences. That's a lot of international in there. And because I had an international social work degree program, I was able to go spend a summer in Berlin while I was in grad school, which is the next tip. Tip number 4 is look into internships abroad. Now, I know there are some websites that you have to pay for in order to get an internship abroad. However, one of the best ways to find one is using your on-campus resources. So if you are an undergrad student or a graduate student who is looking to travel more, embedding it into your coursework is a great way to do so. I not only took a class in Berlin for 2 weeks, I then stayed the entire summer of 2019. If I only knew I was gonna follow, I probably would have stayed longer, so I could have my international experience. Yes, I was working 40 hours a week at my internship, but on the weekends, I went to Paris, I went to Amsterdam, I went to London, I traveled around Germany, I saw a lot of Berlin. And so there are other ways for you to afford travel if you embed it into your career path or your studies. However, if you are not a student, another resource I recommend is the Seek PTO dashboard by Pax Light, aka Gabby Beckford. She is a YouTuber on here as well as on Instagram, TikTok, but her website also has paid travel opportunities. So if you are not a student, or you are a student and you're looking for different conferences or travel contests to enter, I highly recommend subscribing to her newsletter. I won a contest to go spend a week in a co-living space in Colombia, which isn't a formal like study abroad experience, but to be honest, it kind of felt like it. And even though I'm no longer a student and I'm not trying to go back to school anytime soon, it was a great opportunity that I did not have to pay for to experience a new country, new culture. So if you're thinking, oh man, these tips may not apply for me, go check out her platform to see what are options for you to enter travel contests or other internship and conference opportunities for you to go abroad. Which is again a perfect segue into my current strategy. So in addition to using the PTO dashboard, I am obviously a remote social worker, as I said in the beginning of this video, but seeking out remote work is one of the more easier ways to travel more or to afford travel more when you do have a full-time job. I know I'm able to do 2-week workations where I work during the day and sightsee in a place at night or after work hours or on the weekend, which is a great way to combine working and traveling. I'm not someone who wants to be a full-time digital nomad, at least not at this point in my life. I really don't want to live out of a suitcase for months and months on end. So I spend a lot of time here at home, and when I want to kind of get away for a few weeks, I may go and do a stint somewhere. And if you're curious about how to become a remote social worker in particular, I do have a video as well as a social work playlist of other videos to learn about the more flexible career paths within the social work profession. Another current strategy I've been using is increasing my income. Yes, I am a social worker, but when I was an undergrad, I strategically looked at, okay, what area of social work could I be fulfilled and like what I do, but also make a bit more money than what I was hearing social workers would be making post-graduation. So if you're looking to increase your income, which would obviously help you travel more, try seeing how you can pivot within the current career sector you are currently in so that you don't have to pivot and start over in a whole new career path. For me, I was really interested in going abroad and being a really cool traveling international social worker, but due to the pandemic, I had to make a pivot, and I ended up pivoting into remote work and doing research and evaluation consulting, which affords me the opportunity to do the majority of my work remotely. And if I want to go travel, I also have that option to do so. And being in a more research profession, that does mean I have a slightly higher income than maybe the average social worker. So I would do research into your own area of work to see, okay, where can I work my way up to maybe get more income, or what do I need to do to pivot out of that career path to increase my income. Another strategy of how I have personally afforded to travel, and what I recommend if you are able to, is lowering your expenses. And for me, this meant moving home. Because I graduated in a pandemic, I was not trying to go abroad like I had initially planned when I enrolled in my international social work program in 2018. So I had to pivot, and part of that pivot meant moving home, but that also meant that graciously my parents do not charge me rent. So I am able to save quite a bit of money and use part of that money to travel a bit longer when I do decide to have more workations. And if you've been watching my channel, you know I've been to Panama, Colombia, Mexico. I've traveled around the US, Guatemala. Once you lower your expenses, that would obviously free you up more to travel. Other ways I've lowered my expenses: I do not own a car because I work remotely and live at home. It is not something that I necessarily need, but I will go and catch an Uber or a Lyft if I need to. So be mindful of those additional costs. I also don't shop a lot between trips. I will shop on a trip though. Let's be clear. I will buy a nice flowy skirt, a nice set of earrings or something like that while on my trip. And a few other ways I lower my expenses are not going to concerts, but normally I don't go to many concerts just because they are really nice to go to and really fun, but they also can be very expensive. I also prioritize cooking at home and not eating out as much, though I do go out to eat every now and again. If I know I have a big trip coming up, I probably won't go out to eat as much prior to that trip because I know I'll be going out to eat a lot on that trip. So when you're trying to figure out how to afford to travel, you want to make sure that you're prioritizing your expenses and your experiences to decide what you want to prioritize before your trip, what you need to cut out before your trip, what you want to prioritize during your trip, and what you want to cut out during your trip to make space for other things. And I actually have a really fun way to do this. It's called Smash or Pass travel planning strategy. So what you do is you get your notes app or a sheet of paper, and you have 4 different sections. You have your smash expenses and your smash experiences. So your smash expenses are things that need to be done, like your rent, pay your bills, etc., before your trip, so you know that money is saved away. And then you make a list of your smash experiences, which are experiences that you want to do on the trip that you're planning, that you're willing to prioritize and do the most. So for me, sometimes it's like a cooking class or doing a street food tour or a scenic train ride. But on the flip side, you have your past expenses and your past experiences. So your past expenses are things that I mentioned previously, like shopping or going out to eat, that you don't want to do a whole lot before your trip because you want to prepare for the actual trip itself and save that money. So those are expenses that, hence the title, you are going to pass on. And for your past experiences, these are things that maybe you put on your smash experiences, but once you looked at that list and looked at the budget and looked at how much money you actually had for a trip, you may decide, actually, I'm gonna cut that out. And for me, that does happen sometimes. I may cut out a tour or two if I have already been above or, close enough to my budget, I may cut out some experiences too. That's a fun way to compare and contrast to see what you want to prioritize and how you can move around your own finances to afford more travel. The next way that I afford to travel is by paying off my debt. Now, I know there's been a lot of conversation that a lot of travel influencers, creators, or just folks in general who travel are going into debt to travel. And I want to tell you, that is not true for all of us. I don't recommend going into debt to travel because eventually you do have to pay for those experiences. However, I do believe in paying off your debt in order to travel more down the road. And I know for me that has been paying off my student loan debt, which is a very controversial topic. Honestly, I'm not one to judge. Do what you need to do. However, for me, I made a pact to myself to pay off my student loan debt while I was still living at home, not paying rent, so I could set myself up or future me up for more impactful travel experiences once all my debt was paid off. A more niche way to travel more is to have a side hustle. And for me, that is creating travel content and being a freelance travel writer. I've been creating content since about 2017, off and on between undergrad, getting my degrees and all that good stuff, and working a 9-to-5 and being an AmeriCorps and fulbright. Now I create content more regularly, and because of that, I'm able to monetize and get seen by brands or even publications who want me to write about my train travel adventures for them, or I'll pitch to other companies in order to get some experiences and create content for them on top of it. So that is a great way that I travel more. But obviously, if you are not into freelance travel writing or creating travel content because you are not traveling, finding whatever skill set you have that can be monetized on the side is a great way to have extra money. I will say it definitely comes in handy to pay for tours and experiences, especially on my trip. So if you are a writer, if you are a graphic designer, if you are really good at coaching people, or whatever your skill set may be, consider what you can do to get a little extra cash on the side to go to your travel fund. Some websites to look into to promote your services are like Upwork, and I think it's Fiverr. And also LinkedIn. Having a LinkedIn presence when you're talking about what you're doing or your side business can really help you find people who are job seeking or looking to fill roles, because it is a career platform. So I recommend, if you don't want to be on Instagram or TikTok or YouTube or anything else, try LinkedIn, because chances are your target audience for your side business may actually be on there too. And my last way that I currently learned how to travel more and afford to travel is by maximizing my PTO and vacation time. And one way to do that is by sandwiching your days. Sandwiching your days means that instead of taking off Monday through Thursday because you have a holiday on Friday, so you're using 4 vacation days, you take off Thursday and Monday, so you're only using 2 vacation days because you're already counting Saturday and Sunday as part of your vacation time. So it's a great way in order to circumvent using all of your vacation days at one time when you're being more strategic and mapping out what it could look like if you maximize your weekend. Also, I recommend doing trips a bit closer to home. I am the queen of train travel. If you scroll my YouTube channel, you will see that I have taken 52-hour train from Chicago to California. I've taken a train from Milwaukee to Portland, which is 46 hours. I've also taken LA to Seattle, which is 35 hours. I'd be on a train, y'all. And I feel like doing more unique trips closer to home can also be a really cool way to maximize your vacation time, because it may not require you to get on a plane, and it also may not require you to be gone for 2 weeks in Asia if you don't have the time. So redirecting how you think about travel or how you think about taking a trip can be really helpful in understanding how to make the most of where we are. If you are based in the US, we are a humongous country with lots of things to do. So don't forget that, and remember, you don't always have to go out of the country to travel more. But if you want more, go to my website. I have a whole page about how I afford to travel, or how you can also afford to travel, full of resources to use. There are a few freebies on there if you want more of my favorite websites, as well as other websites to find those international fellowship, internship, job, career opportunities, so you can be traveling more in 2024 or wherever you're watching this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and as always, stay curious. If you have any comments or any follow-ups to anything that I said, feel free to leave them down below. Bye.